So I am methodically making my way through the Star Wars canon as approved by Disney. So Disney bought Lucasfilm back in 2012, and in doing so, they canceled a lot of the previous canon that already had been established in the universe, and they moved that over into Legends. They left some and adopted some into the new canon, and then created a whole lot more. Some of it bad, some of it good. I'm going through it all. I wanted to do this in real time, so I am going to be making an ongoing series, entries into a series that is cataloging and recording my experience. And I'm going to talk about the good and the bad and the just okay, not just the movies. I've seen some of the movies. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fanatic of all times. I don't know all of the content there, and there's been a lot of it. I know just enough to get me by or to do some damage, but I'm starting at the very beginning, chronologically in the Star Wars universe, and then kind of walking through till I can get through all of the content. We're talking about graphic novels. We're talking about comics, books, audiobooks, audio adventures. We're talking about the television series and the different things, all of the different media, the video games even that they put out in current Disney canon. I'm going through them all. And there's many lists online that you can find of the chronological Disney canon, Star Wars, whatever. I'm using the one primarily from Wallaroo Media. So they've got a list on there that you can kind of just scroll down and see all of the different entries into the Star Wars saga. You can check the list there. Would love for some of you to kind of just do this along with me. I've already talked to some of you in the comments and you're like, hey, Star Wars, let's do some buddy reads. Hey, let's do some buddy reads. Either catch up with me or start where I am. Here today, as I'm recording this video, I just started the Clone Wars. This is my very first step into the Clone Wars universe, and I'm kind of really excited about it. But for now, I'm going to talk about the first few pieces of content that I interacted with leading up to episode 1. The next video in this series will be episode 1, moving forward all the way up to episode 2. But for now, we're going to do all the prequel content to episode 1. The earliest piece chronologically of the Disney canon right now is a short story called A Recipe for Death. This takes place sometime before 90 BBY, which I believe is before the Battle of Yavin? Before Battle of Yavin, BBY, and it sounds like one of the robots, doesn't it? The droids. I don't know what the Battle of Yavin is yet because I haven't gotten there chronologically, but I do know that that's how the timeline kind of works. And so this is a quirky short story that supposedly kicks off the saga so far. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't really mention anything in the universe that sets it firmly in a time outside of it's in one of the fortresses or the castles of Maz Kanata, and I believe she's in one of the more recent movies, but she must be some old alien. And it's actually a really good short story with some memorable characters. It's kind of a whodunit mystery, all set in a kitchen competition, a lot like Chopped on the Food Network. It sounds insane. It is insane. You get aliens, you get fun, but you don't get any force. So if that's what you're looking for, kind of like force and lightsabers, you're not going to get it here. But if you want just a cute little story set in the Disney universe, quick story set in the Star Wars universe, this can do it for you. The next piece of content in the Star Wars Disney canon so far is also probably set early, sometime before 40 BBY, and this is Dooku Jedi Lost. Not a book, not even an audio book. This is an audio drama, which means that you've got different voice actors along with like a backing track and sound effects and all of these things, which is a really cool experience. But for this one, I really wish that I would have been able to read it in a book format. Here we follow Dooku's journey from youngling to Padawan to Jedi Master. And knowing next to nothing about the Star Wars universe, it was kind of fun to discover Dooku's backstory. He's a very smart, skilled individual who the Jedi Council could have really benefited from. But what I'm starting to find out is not only in this book, but in all of the content so far, the Jedi Council's pretty crappy. It was fun to discover that Dooku was a Padawan of Yoda's, and that Dooku himself had many different Padawan, including one that I'm quite familiar with, Qui-Gon. I'm still learning. I've rarely ever said these words out loud. Qui-Gon Jinn. Man, Star Wars fans are going to hate me. It was also cool to be introduced to Ventress, who didn't get much screen time, so I'm really looking forward to getting more of her. As I said earlier, I just started the Clone Wars, and I think that she's a character there. Really interested to get more of a look into this assassin Jedi evil. She's not a Jedi. Bad girl. Count Dooku is a super complex character who I found myself agreeing with more often than not. In this book, he doesn't ever turn completely evil, but for the very first time, he learns to use the lightning force, and that's pretty scary. Up next is a book called Master and Apprentice, and this is set around 33 BBY, and it is the earliest story that we currently have on record of Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So we're on a planet here, and this planet's about to sign a treaty, and they need some Jedi to oversee. Remember, this is before wars. This is before the battles, and so the Jedi are just the peacekeepers of the universe. And so we have two Jedi come to the planet, and things don't go as planned. It goes from bad to worse real fast, and a lot of things happen. However, all of that is really just the backdrop for the real story, which is about the relationship between these two Jedi, between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. You get a lot more into Qui-Gon's character, personality, why he so heavily believes in the prophecies, and why he kind of pushes against the tendencies of the Jedi Council, which wouldn't we all? While the story is good and it's cool to see the relationship develop between these two Jedi, it's somewhat like heavy-handed, and I mean, it overstates the tension and the whininess of these two Jedi and their arguments and their fighting. And that tends to be a common trope that I'm starting to find in the Star Wars universe between Master and Padawan, or whatever it is, Knight and Padawan. And you get this relationship where they're never just best friends, are they? They always have to have some issues at the beginning. And that's no different here. Master and Apprentice is good, it's fun, it's good writing. Claudia Gray is the author, and she does really well. I know she's written some other books that I'll have to get to eventually once we reach those, but she did well here in creating a story set in the Star Wars universe. And finally, for now, we've got Darth Maul, or Star Wars Darth Maul. This is a graphic novel set around the same time as Master and Apprentice, 33 BBY, right before the events of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, when Maul was an apprentice and one of the only few remaining Siths in the galaxy. We get a little bit of backstory here of Maul, and he's traveling around with this assassin crew that is really cool. It's just 5 quick issues, but it's beautifully illustrated, kind of moody and campy, but that's Star Wars. It's really good. I've always been a fan of Darth Maul. He looks cool, and he had an amazing lightsaber. He didn't get much time in the movies, and he maybe had like 7.5 lines of dialogue. You don't get much more lines of dialogue here. A lot of it is kind of it's inner dialogue in his head and his mind, and he's just like, I hate Jedi. But this graphic novel helps to explain some of his hatred and his relationship with his master, who but this does help fill in some of that and really rounds out his character a little bit more. Honestly, give me Darth Maul and some more lightsaber battles, and I'm going to be down for that. That's it for now. I've already read more and watched more. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is next. So in our next video in this series, I'll talk about that movie along with the content that has been released between episode 1 and 2. So super excited about that. If you would like to join this journey with me, just pick up and start reading. These books and audio dramas and graphic novels are pretty easy to read. I was able to get through this first set fairly quickly. I only started to slow down when episode 1 hit, which we'll talk about next time. Until then, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to do all the things with bells and likes and subscribing. Join the Dragon Army. And if you care, share this video with someone that you think might enjoy this content. Until next time.